6:32, I am calling the meeting to order. I want to recognize Pete Hetzel, Dan Ingold, and Alyssa Sabetto. Thank you all for coming. And Ian, of course. And I, just as I do every meeting, want to remind people of the rules and procedures of this meeting, which are someplace on a clipboard out there. Does anybody at the table have new additions to the agenda? So we do.
Yes.
Since we put the agenda out on Thursday of last week, we have the Windham Solid Waste Management budget vote, which will come under old business. The Vermont State Police 6-month contract renewal, which will come under old business. A draft article from the Select Board to the Gazette, which is new business, and Windham County Humane Society contract, which we might table for another meeting.
Okay.
I'm just checking that now.
Yeah, considering the time.
Yeah. Are there changes to the agenda order? Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the Select Board minutes from November 28th.
I had two questions. It said in the minutes that I seconded the minutes, the prior minutes, but I abstained from that because I hadn't read them. Did I really second them?
You did.
Okay,
I
well, I
actually
shouldn't
checked
have.
today. Yeah.
Okay,
but-
well, I was gonna ask Peter to check. And then I did abstain from the BBCC septic perc test that I proposed.
No,
did?
so that was, I abstained.
You
I wasn't in
abstained.
here, so I wasn't sure if that was
I
a
think
mistake.
that should have been
Jeez.
Gabby, Peter,
Okay.
under action, because I was the one who put the
Oh, not
motion
Gordon
forward.
abstained.
Yeah, it should have been, yeah, I thought it.
Or no,
just
Dick
mixed up
put
the
the
two of us.
motion,
I might
then
have,
Troy, but
I didn't think you abstained. I
It
thought
was
that
Gabby
I-
that
Yeah, I thought that was
abstained
just a
there.
typo.
Because you're on
Gordon
the
abstained, yeah. Right.
and I guess the
Yeah,
only
Gordon,
reason
so
I
that should be
moved
Gabby
So
abstained?
I think we could have a
Sorry.
motion to approve the minutes unless there were other
With
changes.
those changes,
With those two
perfect.
corrections, with that correction.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Dick. And Troy, thank you for your second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion has passed, thank you. I'm gonna, Alyssa, give two people a few minutes before you. Okay, so the first is Pete Hetzel and Peter Rude on discharging
Yep.
a simple housekeeping matter.
So this actually had already occurred and we just need to make it more official. So this is from the delinquent tax collector. It was a mortgage deed that was held by the town for David and Mary Ellen Franklin. And so since this has already been executed technically in 2009, you guys need to approve it. And then Pete is here because he is a notary, and so all we need is your signatures, and then he'll notarize it, and we're done with this, and then Pete can go home.
Can you say again what we're approving?
You're not approving anything. It was already approved in 2009.
Yep.
So what are we doing?
You're formalizing the process that was already happened, and it happened incorrectly the first time round.
So we're just confirming that it was done, that it is now correct and discharged, and finally discharged.
Correct.
Lo these many years later.
But I wasn't here in 2009, as you
You
were.
can see the document.
Yeah.
But I
You can read that it's discharged.
Yeah, it states that it
I
was
knew what it
discharged.
was, though.
Can we take a look at the documents before
Absolutely.
we
Please pass them around.
Because they weren't in the box, right? Or did I miss them? The Dropbox?
No, they were not
Okay.
in the electronic account because I only got them in paper form.
They came out of the fund, whatever it is.
Dan, would you like to talk about your solar thing while we're waiting for people to review this document? I'm sorry, Pete, I thought.
So one of my duties is I'm a trustee for the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department. And about a year and a half ago, we put up a solar project and actually got a grant from GMP to help us with that. And it turns out that the solar project actually is performing better than expected, to the point that we have excess credits that will expire in February if we don't use them. And we don't actually, our bills basically been zero now for about a year. And we have enough solar producing it that we don't see using those credits, and just with the support the town has given the fire department, the thought of the trustees is, let's see about giving those credits over to the town. So how that would happen is, one, the trustees did vote in their last meeting. I was not here, I was out west for the project, but they did vote yes, they totally agree to give the credits to the town. What I need from you is, one, do you want the credits, at least $600 worth of credits? And I would need the account numbers both for the town garage and for the office here. It's actually more credits than you could use in this office, so if we have both. And what we would do is, in the short term, actually add those two accounts to a group net metered account, and basically turn those credits over to you for January and February.
And then they're no longer,
And then they're
Then you
no
can no longer
longer, it
transfer
may
credits.
happen every year.
uh-huh,
We may be in the same situation, that'd be a great thing. But rather than turn the credits over to Green Mountain Power, I would like to see it happen, so that, you know, I'm a taxpayer in town, no, we all are. I would rather see us use it. So, and what better use than the town and the town garage?
Would you like all three accounts?
So, what are the three accounts?
You got the old town garage, the new town garage, and the
I
town.
want all
office.
three accounts then.
so,
That's great.
thank you. Do I hear a motion to accept with appreciation the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department's
Gladly accept those credits.
offer of electrical credits for the town use? Thank you, Dick.
Second.
Gabby,
Thank you
second.
for offering it to the
Yeah.
town, we really do
Yes, we
appreciate that
appreciate
and
that,
giving
Dan.
it
So I
back
may be
to the
back every year
taxpayers.
to do the same thing.
I hope so.
That would be good.
Thank you. All in favor? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Just sign it. Oh, you weren't here, you can't sign it.
None of us were here.
didn't
We
vote
can
yet.
assign, we can say
vote
that
yet.
this has, oh. Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good night.
Is everyone satisfied that this this mortgage has been discharged properly?
Yeah, so Peter, just to make sure, we went back and it's paid and it should have been discharged in the past, they're all up.
It
just
was
wasn't done.
discharged, but it wasn't discharged in a way that a lawyer who now needs it for part of the title search would like it to be discharged.
I'll stop by tomorrow and get the account numbers.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Actually, wait, technically,
Accommodate your request.
the office is closed tomorrow because of voting,
Oh, right.
and I don't know where those account numbers are, because I'm new.
Okay, can you turn them over to Penny
I can.
Peter, and
I can.
they have my email address.
I can tell you tomorrow where the numbers are.
Okay, great, yes, so I'll get them to you.
You might even have time tomorrow.
Gabby, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the discharge of the, what,
Mortgage.
This
mortgage for the, I think it's the Franklins?
Yep,
Yes, that is correct.
paid in full on September 4th, 2009. Second?
Second.
Troy, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Thank you, motion has passed. Moving right along, and we'd like to welcome Alyssa back to our table. Thank you for coming all this way and for driving back all this way, all of your way tonight. Alyssa is here on her own tonight. Steve's off someplace, I can't remember where.
I need to actually witness Gabby.
Oh,
Son and daughter-in-law in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
He's
So
he's the notary.
I want to remind people that last week we talked about the map and the draft bylaws. And I think that Gabby and I and Gordon were going to look at them and send back some comments to Alyssa. Ian, is the map on the table going to bother your,
I shut the mic off.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is good. So we were to have reviewed, and I don't know who you heard from.
I heard
Alyssa.
from you and
I read it, I did not send anything.
And
I
that's
wanted to see
fine.
this map first, I could not get online I couldn't open it. I
Oh,
tried
okay.
multiple times,
You
but
got
it's
me-
my inability
you got my link and everything
Yep.
now? Okay.
through Sheila, but the Mac didn't like it.
Oh,
No,
that's, yeah.
it didn't like the map, but it did like the documents.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah. So-
all I wanted to see was
I,
document.
Alyssa, I wanted to consult with you. I was thinking first we should see if there are general comments before we get into specific issues or questions.
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah,
Okay.
however you'd like to do it.
I mean, most of mine were small questions
Yes.
following on the discussion or small little edits, except for a couple of things. So I didn't know if anybody, Gordon or
I
Dave.
gave Alyssa a long list to just.
No, that was
I hope
great.
it wasn't too
That
much.
was great. No, and I was glad you
Just make
sent
sure
it.
it flowed and made sense in my mind, because it is a really complex
Yeah.
it's a pretty complex ordinance, actually, to make sure that I was understanding it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a reader, because I know you've been living with it probably for a long time.
Yeah, and sometimes I, don't see it in a certain way because I have been looking at it for years.
So, if there are no general comments, I think maybe you could walk us pretty quickly through.
Yeah, so, well, I've answered all of your questions, and like you said, your stuff was pretty minor.
Yeah.
So I didn't make actually any changes to the document yet, so that we could
Okay.
get everyone's comments. And that way we'd all be working from the same thing tonight. And, so however you would like to do it, I can go through Gabby's stuff and we can use that to.
Sure, did they make sense? Because I wasn't sure, sometimes like I had a question, but then it got answered in a later portion, so hopefully, and tell me if my comments are like totally off base too, I was just.
No, yeah, they were great. I mean, some of them I answered them all here.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Do you want to walk us through those so we can listen? Would that make?
I think that would. I mean, that would work for me. I think it's a good way to explain the document because they go
Yes.
the whole way through it.
Okay.
Okay. So her first question was wanted a restructuring of the. I mentioned this at the last meeting, of the order of the sections, and some of that I think it's fine, except my only thought was if you move the definitions forward, there are so many. It's like 5 pages of definitions. So, I mean, I would suggest to keep them at the end, just because the document can kind of flow as one piece and then have the definitions at the end.
That's fine, I think if the definitions are after enactment, so they're almost like an appendix. And then if, like I said, if we keep to the construct of anything in the definitions are capitalized, so oh, that's a definition I can look up, versus.
How does that work in terms of after the enactment? Because
Or no, sorry, not
definition-
after the enactment, yeah.
okay,
Take it back.
because some of them have their statutory requirement.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so but I mean, reordering it as she suggested. Otherwise, I think is fine. The only thing is that reordering it means I have to go back through it every citation has to be changed. So, but that's that can be done. Not a big deal. We went to work, so.
I mean, I just did it that way because it was really confusing when you started doing the administrative portion and I didn't know what the permit entailed. And so I'm reading it sort of like the first part was in a vacuum, and then I got to the permit and I was like, and the technical provisions, I was like, oh, okay, now I sort of understand what you were talking about in the first half.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say about ordering it is, so the lands to which these regulations apply is really where it's defined in the bylaw as to what is actually being regulated. So keeping that towards the front before beginning any type of regulation, I would also suggest, just so you're aware, first and foremost, what it is that's being regulated before you put the regulations down.
Yep, that makes sense. It was the administration part that I was like, oh, when I was reading it, I was sort of lost.
So we can do that, do it kind of after the regulations, yeah. So that's, we'll reorder it. So, do you want me to kind of read through what you
Whatever
mentioned?
you prefer, fine.
But she said, I would like the permit applicant to bear the burden of proof and the burden of costs, including the added costs associated with the town's administration of the permit process, which is what I believe the regulation does. I just want to make sure you know that it's something I'm looking for. And that is what the regulation does. The applicant
That's what I
bears
thought,
the
yeah.
cost. There was another question that kind of got to that, which we can talk about, but there is no fee structure outlined in this bylaw. But you would probably want to come up with some type of fee structure, probably to be associated with the cost of the improvements the applicant's proposing. Like some type of range that has this fee, so
Like
that
the fire safety permits where you have like 0.008 cents per every $1,000
Yeah,
of improvement or
however,
something like that,
yeah.
or the town, or Brattleboro does, I think, the square footage, 5 cents per.
yeah,
like,
you may want to
tied
look
to
at
square
other
footage.
towns, how other towns in this area do it. I haven't
Is
actually
that something Steve is
constructed
working
that.
on?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that, so not that I know of.
So, at the end of this meeting, are you gonna have a list of things
I
that
can to talk to
people-
Steve.
we need to resolve before we, in order to be able to move forward, like fee structure with a couple of recommendations?
Well, I mean, I had some, that's why I asked some questions to Alyssa, like, do we have this form or do we need to create it? Like, we don't have permits, so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the set and the fee structure was like, where does this fee come from? Do we just pass it as a select board, or is there guidance, like things like that? So
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I had suggested a couple of other things, like a chart of responsibilities.
Mhm. Yeah.
Saying,
We can
What is
do
the-
that. It can.
what does the applicant do, what does the floodplain administrator do, sorry,
Okay. I mean, I guess I could put it in more of a,
just a table.
yeah, some type of simpler format to kind of consolidate what the words say. Okay. Okay.
So as an action item, Alyssa, you're going to get back with some recommendations to the board? Is that how I understand that?
Well,
I don't think we.
I was thinking more that I could make the changes and then send a draft document for you
Okay.
to review.
Sure, I
Great.
just wanted clarity.
And I can work with Steve on some things, because some things I think maybe he should do.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so going right along here, the first comment had to do with IVC1 paragraph 2, which is it's where you're talking about what the A zone actually is and how,
sorry.
it's page 3, the last paragraph.
What if we go back to statement of purpose where I said, might you
Oh.
insert here?
Sure, yeah, I just printed hers, so yeah.
Oh, okay, so let me see if I can
Okay.
keep, so we have 4 purposes, and I had suggested a possible 5th, which is to ensure that prospective property homeowners and home builders are prepared to comply with and to be eligible for flood, not blood, insurance benefits, especially as related to mortgages, just so that people understand the benefit of this process, because we're not really explicit about it in terms of a homeowner or property owner. We talk about it in terms of what the town, how the town is qualified for more funding, how we're complying with national floodplain insurance things, but we don't really talk about the benefit of this kind of burden on property owners in the floodplain. So I had suggested that we include a 4th goal, or 4th purpose, a 5th purpose.
Okay, yeah, can you restate that just one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, and it is, so, this is my draft wording, I don't believe that it's legal, but, so, we might consider that one of the purposes of this bylaw is to ensure that prospective or current property homeowners and home builders property owners and home builders are prepared to comply with and be eligible for flood insurance benefits, especially as related to mortgages and,
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that number 4 here does somewhat gets a part of the point in terms of make the town of Guilford its
Citizens,
and
businesses.
eligible for flood insurance.
Yep.
You're not necessarily, the bylaw isn't necessarily preparing them for compliance, so I wouldn't.
But they have all of these responsibilities.
But I don't want to say we're ensuring that they'll get their mortgage and their flood insurance.
No, that they're prepared to comply.
I don't know if they are prepared to comply
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that as a mortgage company, we're preparing them to comply with whatever the mortgage company is going to require.
So
Or the
how
fund.
would you describe, in a little bit more explicit way,
Well, the
benefit
mortgage
to property
companies-
owners?
The mortgage company would be the one that tell you what you have to comply
Of this
with.
bylaw, no, this bylaw is burdensome. to property owners because of the permitting process and things like that. So how do we
I'm like, you do, I mean.
say,
I think-
I'm sorry?
I think that's, you know, to me, you're hitting kind of a nail on the head. You know, I don't think there's anything you can say. Yes, if you're in this zone and you abide by the floodplain recommendations from the federal government, you're probably gonna get a reduced rate in your insurance.
We as a town
But,
have a floodplain administrator and a flood insurance program, so that's our gift to you, the rest of it is up to you to take
Yeah,
care of.
if there was somebody that wasn't in compliance with the regulations, then they would be kicked out of their policy would be removed
Right,
from
yeah.
the flood insurance, so
Right.
and they wouldn't be
Okay.
insurable. And if it was a town, if it was something, you know, in the town that was in violation,
right,
then the town can be sanctioned by the NFIP, but, I just don't wanna put any liability on you.
No,
or
I
create
did, I
any
totally agree with
expectation
the, no more liability, no liability there. I just was trying to
of-
figure out a way to
See, yeah,
describe
Demonstrate a
it.
benefit,
what's the
right.
benefit, yeah.
Well, and I think the benefit is really to the whole town, but also it's sort of proactive in that it's saying, we recognize that these are places that could flood out. So we're trying to give you guidelines
Yeah.
so that your
Right.
property isn't damaged either. And
Yeah.
it goes both ways. It's not just yes, it's burdensome on the property owner, but it also is forcing them to be proactive
To
about
be-
how they build.
To protect themselves.
them and their property.
And their
Okay.
neighbors. I think that number 2, avoid and minimize the loss of life and property, the disruption of commerce, and you know all of the things there is kind of the benefit that comes from adherence with.
Mhm.
But I mean, you know,
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to raise the question.
yeah. Okay, but yeah, please bring up your suggestions because I don't have them printed. Okay, so Gabby's next thing was IBC1 paragraph 2, which is the last paragraph on page 3. And she was saying, she says the studies should be sufficient for technical review by the municipality. Is it expected that the select board will be able to interpret these studies? What if they have to hire an expert? So this gets to basically in the determination of what the base flood elevation is for an A district, because as I said at the last meeting, the special flood hazard areas in your town don't come with pre-assigned base flood elevations from FEMA. So the property owner has to determine that. And then the studies that would be used to do that sometimes come from professional engineers or others with demonstrated qualifications. So studies, analysis, computations, etc. shall be submitted in sufficient detail to allow a thorough technical review by the municipality. I think that this would probably, that an applicant would, I think first that the town should not have to hire their own expert. The burden should be on the applicant to have their expert explain it to the town if the town has questions. The applicant should make their expert available to answer questions from the town.
Okay.
And I would make sure that, you know, your applicant would be aware of that, or, you know, the floodplain administrator should do that. I mean, we could state
I
that
think
if,
put in parentheticals, including access to, you know,
yeah, like if, do you think that-
applicant's expert or something, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just making that up.
Yeah, we could add language in there if you feel that that would be clarifying. I think so.
Because I don't know that if I got a bunch of technical I can't even say it, hydraulic analyses, that I'd be like, I don't know what this means. I mean, I've seen them and I said, I don't know what this means in the past.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, they don't technically have to hire somebody if they can. You should be able to theoretically determine what the base flood elevation is yourself by looking at the flood insurance study. So they have graphs and charts to be able to, you know, basically, you know, figure out the point, and then that point is associated with the elevation. But they would have to demonstrate that to you in a way that you were acceptable of. But and then IVD, who is responsible for the action and cost of getting FEMA approval? And this would be in terms of if there's any changes in what the special flood hazard area is or the river corridor. I mean, this isn't answered per se in it, but because it says, additionally, as soon as practicable, but not later than 6 months after the date such information becomes available, a community shall notify FEMA of the changes to the special flood hazard area by submitting technical or scientific data. So if there's any changes in the identification of area, you would most likely, or the applicant would most likely be working pretty closely with the state, because that is something, with A&R, because that's something that would have to you'd have to be permitted for, and A&R would be involved in that. But if it's municipal, if it's the municipality causing changes to the special flood hazard area, you're putting in a bridge or something that's changing something, then it would be, the community would be responsible, and the community would have to bear the expense of what the submission was to FEMA. But if it's the applicant, then the applicant would have to bear that expense.
So this is the paragraph where I said it would be useful to create a chart of responsibilities by player.
For the changes in the identification?
For wherever, just starting here, I was like, okay, what does everybody need to do, So could we have an addendum that sort of lays out who's responsible for what actions, or who initiates them or something? Property owner, select board, floodplain administrator.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'll attempt to do that. Sometimes it's hard to simplify some of the stuff. So, the table, like
you could refer to page D, something.
Okay. Okay.
And then in the second paragraph under D, where it says administrative revisions to the river corridor may be made at the request of the municipal legislative body. I'm assuming that means the select board, but I think it's easy enough to say the select board in the case of the town of Guilford, rather than the municipal body.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. And let's see. Okay, who is responsible? There is a reference in the fifth line to the community being responsible. Can we make that the applicant's responsibility? Okay. So I have page 21, 8D3, page 21. Sorry, I'm just, some of it, D3. So that, on page 21 there in D3 where it's highlighted, in addition, FEMA shall be notified prior to any alteration or relocation of the water course. The applicant is responsible for all associated costs with processing letters of map change. So that clarifies it somewhat. And some of these notes I would leave in because they're kind of explanatory.
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, some of my questions might have been answered later on. So if that's the case, just.
Yeah. All right.
So for the select board to discuss, Alyssa, under
Sure.
5 administration, on page 4,
Oh yeah.
we talk about considerable duties of the floodplain administrator, which I guess, do we have a job description for a floodplain administrator now that would delineate these, or is this it? In other words, because the select board would probably have to agree that the floodplain administrator is so empowered. And then it says, in the absence of a designated floodplain administrator, the duties are fulfilled by the town administrator.
Yeah.
Which actually gives the town administrator more authority than currently allowed in the job description. At this point, the flood administrator, it sounds as authorized to act with a fair amount of autonomy. But the town administrator reports to the select board, advises the select board, and the select board takes action. So we would have to reflect designation, the responsibilities accurately, and those are the notes that I've given you.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Okay.
and I don't know, this is for debate, I mean, I think if,
Wouldn't appeals come to the select board anyway?
Yeah, appeals do come to the select board.
I guess my only question was and you have this already, is that the floodplain administrator can enter into written contracts. It seems without select board approval, so that was my issue that went to me
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
broad.
Yeah, and that I think we can totally add with select board approval.
Yeah, and that's all it needed was like upon select board approval or something.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we want the town administrator to add to his duties, that, if he needs to take on certain duties, like one time we were at one point talking about whether he or she would be the emergency management
Direct.
director. Yeah, so.
Which, yeah.
So I think like town administrator duties are one thing, it's one box, and other duties can be another thing if we want them to be. Like if we agree in this
Some of this, though,
regulation that's okay with us.
that is how FEMA has it set up, is that in the absence of the town having a floodplain administrator, automatically the duties go to the highest administrative officer in the town.
so that, in this case, would be the select board.
Chair,
The
right?
town administrator in cooperation with the select board, or at the direction of the select board, or something like that.
Okay, well, I guess we could say, be fulfilled by the town administrator with direction from the select board.
Oh no, I just make it the chair of the select board like the EMD.
Yeah.
Cause
I
that's how
It's a lot of responsibility.
Steve chose the town administrator for that spot.
Okay.
Typically, it's
And it
the
would
chair of the
probably
select board.
be handed off to the town administrator at the discretion of the select board. But I don't think that the chair of the select board would act independently either, it would be the select board,
But you do act independently when you're the EMD, don't you?
in an emergency.
Right, but wouldn't this be the same sort of thing? Like, okay, if a permit comes up, you can act independently.
I would, yeah, that's his job.
That's right. That's your
I
job.
need a permit to build a house, that's a
Yeah.
floodplain administrator's job. And if he doesn't give it, then the appeal comes to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these things, I think it's important to note is that technically the floodplain administrator already has these duties, even though your bylaw doesn't actually state that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one reason that we put these in, is to clarify,
Mm-hmm.
to give them some guidance, because they don't
So,
sometimes know what to do.
But I think that makes sense. If it's the same thing with the EMD, why not keep it consistent in the chair of the select board?
I question it only that it is so much, reading through this, there is so much responsibility here, that if we don't have a floodplain administrator or they leave the position and the chair of the select board has to account to this, I think it's a lot of work for the chair to assume, personally on their own. I wouldn't support the chair
Who do you
doing
think
it.
should get it?
I don't
Who should be
know.
in charge?
well,
I don't know.
obviously, we would have to look pretty
I
quickly.
think it's a lot of responsibility.
For a floodplain.
I think finding a person who's willing to take on that responsibility is a whole nother piece.
We've
I don't
been
disagree with you.
5 or 6 years finding somebody that actually,
It sounds good, but
But I think,
It's-
do we need a default person in here
Yeah,
by
you
FEMA
do-
regulation?
Yes,
I
yeah.
figured it's like the EMD, or like you need a default person
Yeah.
if no
They
one takes
have
the
to
job.
they have to have that, or else, FEMA comes to town, who's your floodplain administrator, you have to have somebody.
And in truth, the town administrator, if we have FEMA in town, works very closely with FEMA.
Mhm.
Because that's where the documents are, that's who's managing the records and stuff like that. All I wanted the select board to be aware of is that we had a long and strong discussion about discretion and authority. And the job description says that the town administrator operates at the instruction of the select board and not independently. And so if we are going to say something different here, we need to actually be
Address
quite
it in
explicit
there.
about it.
So why don't we make it the chair of the select board with assistance from the town who can delegate, or with assistance from the town administrator?
I think, okay, so the floodplain administrator, what it's saying is, town administrator replaces the floodplain administrator if he's not available. Is that what that's?
If there is no one designated.
Yeah.
It's like,
In the absence, the
Like
duties
like
are.
the
And then-
EMD,
and then
you have
the
to have
floodplain
somebody.
administrator.
Yeah, you may wanna plug that into your town administrator job description, so they're aware. that they become these, or however you wanna do it.
I'm not opposed, and Peter's sitting here very quietly, however, it is a change from how we have operated
I
to
would-
date, and I am just asking everybody to be aware of it, we can deal with it on an
I
as-needed
think,
basis.
Yeah, we can, or take it up.
The
We can deal with what
floodplain-
is that, I mean, I'm confused now.
the-
We can figure out how to, over time, if necessary, change the job description of the town administrator. What?
I don't wanna touch that job description
Right?
anymore. Can we,
We can add a block of other responsibilities and think about how to address it differently.
so
And we
maybe,
can make sure that we have a backup floodplain administrator in case Steve decides he doesn't wanna do this anymore.
Why
There
can't the town administrator do the legwork and come to the select board and say, this is what we have? We
Can
need
do
to give
that.
that permit.
If I can interject, actually, if I remember correctly, the job description did have a section in there in which it stated, and other duties as assigned by the select board.
That's
So you
correct.
guys already had that contingency in there, if
Yes.
something such as this came up,
Yes.
that you wished for this position to need to do. So I don't think you necessarily need to change the job description as it is, this is just another one of those items for you.
Yeah, and something you might wanna consider too is to put the responsibility of these duties on someone who's paid. I mean, I don't know, maybe you all are paid, but
Oh,
If
yeah.
there's-
Oh, God.
you know, to put
I think-
additional
Oh, yeah, my wallet's
responsibilities.
nice and fat from this.
I think finding a floodplain administrator who's willing to take on these duties, he or she will want to be paid to some degree.
But I mean, say we had the catastrophic event occur and, you know, say that the person that was in that role was unfortunately killed in that event. Well, then who's gonna take over that position in the meantime until somebody new is found?
Select board chair.
I think it's the chair, in all honesty.
I think it can stay as it is with the discretion
Yeah.
of the select board.
Is that sufficient for FEMA purposes, or do they need a person?
They do want a
Position.
position designated.
And you're saying we can't
But if
say
you,
the town
if
administrator
you-
based on the
You said
current.
we couldn't as of.
Well, no, I'm
I
clarifying.
think we
You
can
could-
say, to be fulfilled by the town administrator working with the select
Select.
board and,
Under the discretion or whatever.
yeah,
period.
We can,
Yeah.
we can.
that would be fine, cause that does designate a
Yeah.
position.
He's the go-to guy.
And I think that's the smartest way to do it, honestly, because you would become, you would be knowledgeable in these regulations and.
And this is really administration.
Yeah,
And
and a lot of
it's-
it's records you
I
already
agree
know
with
where they
that.
exist, that kind
And,
of thing.
I mean, additionally, if another one of these instances occurred and we had another catastrophic storm, I would be heavily involved
Right.
in
Anyway,
the
that's-
whole thing
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
and with FEMA, so.
Right, and so,
Yeah, you'd be dealing with FEMA anyway.
right,
Okay, so we'll just add in with the discretion of the
I
select.
just put that note in the shared document.
Okay, great.
so.
Okay. Okay, she said for B1,
What page?
number 4, just right below there, duties and responsibilities of floodplain administrator, B1. It makes me nervous that the FAA is responsible for making sure that all other applicable codes and bylaws are complied with, since the FAA is a layperson. What is the liability on the town? And or FAA, if approval is erroneously given, why not all codes and when not all codes and bylaws are met? So, and that's the same comment for B2. The thing is that they're not responsible for the compliance of the bylaw.
Okay.
They're only responsible for, well, they're not even, it depends on what it is. If it's in the special flood hazard area, they are required to ensure that all the other required permits are approved before giving a local permit,
Okay,
but the river corridor doesn't require that.
so when you
So-
say like, the flood, like I'm looking at B2 now, the flood, because it says it more clearly or explicitly, the floodplain administrator shall review the permit application to determine if all other necessary government permits required by state and federal laws have been obtained.
Yeah,
I mean, that sort of implies that he or she, whoever the floodplain administrator is, needs to read through and make sure that they got their Army Corps of Engineers permit.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's not there, be like, where's your Army Corps of Engineers?
yeah.
And where's your river ship? I don't know.
Yeah, and in all
permits up.
reality, that would be information given to them by the regional permit specialist from A&R.
Okay, can we put that in there? All
Yeah, it is in
permits
there.
as it says.
The floodplain administrator should inform any permit person applying for applying for a permit or authorization that the person should contact the regional permit specialist employed by A&R.
Mhm.
What about
The
federal?
applicant retains the obligation to apply for. That there is no.
It says all state and federal laws. I don't know.
I know there's no. The permit specialist would deal with state and federal.
Oh, they would?
Yeah.
So can we put something at the end, like all of the necessary government, state permits, federal laws have been obtained pursuant to the A&R or as required per the A&R specialist, permit specialist or something like that, so it doesn't put the burden on the floodplain administrator to actually or imply that
Yeah.
it's on the burdens on the floodplain administrator to do that. Because just reading it, it seems like that's what they needed to do.
Yeah, I mean,
They might not be how practiced.
they do for the special flood hazard area in terms of knowing it, whether they have gotten these permits.
Okay.
But with A&R it's different with the river corridor. So that the regulations get a little bit complex because of the differences in requirements, but yeah, I think I can clarify
that they don't have to like tell the person. And in practice, you're telling me in practice that's not what happens. They call A&R. A&R's permit specialist says these 5 permits. They tell the floodplain administrator, and the floodplain administrator says A&R said to get 5 permits. Where are they? Before I can give you my watershed permit, right?
Yeah,
Or river corridor permit.
Yeah.
We're calling it.
yeah.
But, so
Yeah, I'll clarify that, and then you can let me know if it meets what you're looking for, or comment back with. So we'll clarify the role of the FA and the role of the permit specialist. Okay. Alright, so let's see, there's also reference to a municipal land use permit. Is that the permit for development here in a regulated flood hazard area? And that's also related to the 5v1, or, yeah, 5v1. Okay, so let's see, within 30 days after a municipal land use permit, I could add for development in the flood hazard area has been issued.
yeah, or like whatever we're calling the permit. Because it was capital permit in like the sentence above. I'm not, or after, the river
Yeah.
corridor permit or whatever we want to call it.
Yep, okay.
I just want to make sure because we don't have any permits here.
Yeah,
Land use permits, like,
this technically is
a
like,
land
is a land use or a zoning permit, yeah. But I can clarify that. And I have the capital permit thing
yeah, no, I just,
noted too. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions like this kind of stuff?
Nope.
Okay.
That's why we put Gabby on.
did you read this?
Yes.
You know how
I
many
highlighted a
fell
lot of the
asleep?
same areas you did. Very interesting.
Okay, good. I just
The
want
only
to
thing
make
I'm
sure
worried about
I'm
is that word
answering everyone's
permit.
questions. Okay. So yeah, shout out whenever you have other stuff. Okay, so 5C3. Yep. Did you have something?
Sorry, let me just get, B. So in us, continuing in 1C. The flood administrator may charge the applicant for the cost of the recording fees as required by law.
Mm-hmm.
Such
If you
fees
have-
are payable to the town of Guilford.
Yeah, this would be local recording fees if you have local recording fees.
Okay, so,
Like land,
It doesn't
you mean recording in the land records?
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah. 'Cause all this would go into the land records.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have to.
Got it. And then you were moving down to 2?
She didn't have any questions. We did work on 2 a little bit. I'm gonna clarify the role of the FA and the role of the permit specialist.
Okay.
There was no more questions that she had till C3, which is on page 7. Let's see. That is her question. Who is responsible for actually doing the posting? Okay, so the regulation: the applicant shall bear the cost of public warning and notification of joining landowners and interested parties.
Does that mean they also have to like stick it up all over town
No.
and that stuff?
No, that's a floodplain administrative duty.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that in there somewhere else that I just missed?
It was in
yes.
there somewhere.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
in 5. So let's see. I
A lot
have-
of duties for the
A
FA.
lot of dudes.
Telling you.
Yeah, there is, and that's why I'm trying to get more training, because a lot of times they don't know their duties,
Mm-hmm.
and so the duties don't happen. They just aren't happening.
Hell,
Which is
I
a
can see how
problem.
that could happen.
So let's see, so partially post permit posting after it's permitted is in 5B4. Within 3 days of issuance of permits, the FA shall, and then B, post a copy of the permit in one public place in the municipality for 15 days. And that's a requirement by law. So I was thinking we could add in another responsibility or clarify
That's fine. I just want to make sure someone was doing it.
5C that the FA is responsible for that. Yeah. So because all this public notice stuff, you're right, it doesn't state who it is that's doing it. So maybe just under public notice,
Yeah, or if you want to put it in pursuant to whatever section prior, FA will post the notice or something.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay. Alright.
And in that section there, posting public notices, I just included in the document that I gave you, the places where they go in town. I specified.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, so 5C4. So that's the one just below it. Refers to an action, quote unquote. Is the action the permit application? If so, can we say that? So the action, okay, so she's referring to number 4 there. It goes, per statute, no defect in the form or substance of any required public notice under this section shall invalidate the action of the select board where reasonable efforts have been made to provide adequate posting of notice. So the action is the decision of the select board. So the decision of the select board, this decision of the select board won't be invalidated as long as you're posting it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, 5E, which is next page 8. Select board does not have a secretary, and sure, yeah, we can just change that to the town clerk. It does say appealed with the secretary of the select board of that town or with the clerk of that town.
Does it go to the clerk or the town administrator?
It says the town. It says the town
However,
clerk.
you could. This is necessary, but this is statute. This is how it's written in statute. But I don't.
Right, I'm just thinking in terms of responsibilities of floodplain administrator and the town administrator. All of a sudden, we bring in the town clerk.
Well, if there's an
It's
appeal,
an appeal.
it's gotta go to the clerk.
Yeah, but
It'll be
this is.
recorded.
This is all
Okay.
pretty much statute, this whole appeal section.
Okay.
Okay. And then another question about the appeal. Is there a form for the appeal? Do we have to create that?
Or like, what form does the appeal take?
There wouldn't, in my thinking, there wouldn't be an additional form. You'd be looking at the application that they submitted.
And they just say, I file something that says I want an appeal.
Yeah, there is, let's see. Notice of appeal would need to be created. So there would need to have to be a notice of appeal.
But I was trying to figure out, what do they give to the town clerk?
Probably a letter.
The letter
That's,
would be-
well, that was my question. Is it
Yeah,
just
so
a letter or is
notice
it?
of appeal.
Yeah, it
I
should be
want
probably
an
just
appeal.
like an abatement
That's what I was wondering, if
Yeah,
it was
like a letter of
like that.
abatement.
Yeah, so it would be that, and then you would receive all of the information that the floodplain administrator used to make his decision, or her decision. Does that answer everything? Okay. And then E2, okay. Says copies of the select board decision must be mailed to all parties appearing or being heard. That could add up to a sensitive case. Is that required by law? Yes, that's required by chapter 217. It's all written in statute just that way. I agree with you, but just it is.
13 people come because it's I don't know, people are upset about the property, then
Yeah.
that's a lot of time and work.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 250 in that way, you know, where you have
yes,
your
yes it
certificate of
is.
service.
But
yeah.
Act 250, they're like now it's electronic. It's
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you could have, ask for email from people that are coming.
But it says it should be mailed.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I was trying to get around. Can we post it on the website? Can we email it? Can we do something? But it's pretty specific.
so it's only sent to, by certified mail, the applicant and the appellant, and the decisions shall be mailed to every person.
Appearing.
I mean, mailed, email, I don't know.
I was just wondering if there's a way to.
Yeah.
If it's a statute, that's fine. I was just wondering if there's a way not to have to put that on the
Yeah,
town.
I don't know.
Being the devil's advocate and all of this on paperwork, which is, if I got a ton of money and I buy a piece of property beside a brook, and I build a house, and nobody says a word about it, and I pay that insurance, this document doesn't apply. I mean, it applies, but unless somebody rats me out, I think
No,
I
you
read.
still have to get a permit to build the
Not if I get.
structure.
If you do it illegally,
Well, I'm saying
If you-
illegally.
if you do it-
illegally.
ignorance of the law is no excuse. You can't just build and then say, too bad,
Yeah.
I did it. You get in trouble later.
No, that's like the guy that
It
don't
would
go on the
be,
ridge line because he has no permit.
It would
when he
fall
builds it.
under the enforcement section at that point. If it
Yeah.
was a violation of the
But
bylaw.
if nobody
then-
knows about it and I get this all built,
If nobody knows about it, it's a moot point, right?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to
But
say.
as soon as someone sees it,
Yeah.
Somebody sees it and then it goes into.
then it becomes a
then
problem.
then
Yeah.
it's case,
Yeah.
then they
yeah,
get
yeah.
they get fined.
Yes, they would be fined, yep.
Yep.
They'd have to, if they didn't remove the structure in 7 days, then it starts a $200 fine per day.
Yep.
And you would take it.
I just had to bring that up because, today.
Is that what your plan is?
That's what I'm planning.
So, I know two people sitting at this table have been up since 3 snow plowing, so if you can keep moving.
Yeah, part of my sleep on your shoulder.
Okay.
Probably up.
Okay, let's see. Do we need to create the referenced form? That's for VF2. So that's, permit validity. So that's the posting of a notice of a permit on a form prescribed by the town. Yeah, you would have to create the form. Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do in order to actually make this viable?
Yeah, yep. And I mean, you're gonna want a strong permit application too, so that you have all the information to make your decisions.
And is that prescribed? I'm assuming that's prescribed by law, or is that something that we/the flood administrator comes up with?
Yeah, that's something that I'm actually putting one together now because I'm looking at how they do it in other places, and I don't think that towns are doing it in the way that gives them enough information because they don't really even know what to ask for. So, I'll be putting that out there to the floodplain administrators in the region, but, you can certainly create one yourselves too if you.
Not looking for extra work.
Okay, so VG, so the changes. Is there a timing or process of appeal associated with this? So this would be after the issuance of a permit, no changes of any kind shall be made to the application. And is there a timing or process of appeal associated with this? My question, are you talking about for changes to the plan? Or, cause it's already permitted, so if
request for
there,
any change shall be in writing and
so,
should be submitted to the town administrator for consideration. I wasn't sure what happened after that. Like, does he have to respond within a certain amount of time? can he, if it's denied, do they then go through the same appeals process?
Mm-hmm. So they can't make any changes after it's approved.
So then why does it say request for such change should be in writing and submitted if they can't do it?
Well, I guess, so, okay, let's see. After the issuance of a permit, no changes of any kind should be made to the application or anything.
Is it just the floodplain administrator? Like, does the floodplain administrator sign off on that? Or, that's why, does he have to do it within
Yeah.
30 days? And if it's denied, is there a,
Well, I think, I mean, what's permitted and what's approved can't be changed after it's done. A request for such change should be submitted in writing and shall be submitted. So if they want to request a change, they have to request a change from the floodplain administrator. It can't just be made. You know, they can't just make a change without requesting it. I think that's what that's saying. Does that make sense?
is there, are you saying there's like an amendment process?
Yeah,
I mean,
they would have to go through probably like, depending on what the change was, another permit round.
Okay, that's why it was my question, like what happens after the floodplain administrator gets
I
this
think the
request?
floodplain administrator
It becomes another permit process.
potentially, if it was a substantial change, or it could be maybe a permit amendment if it wasn't.
Okay, and does the floodplain administrator need to get back to the applicant within a certain amount of time after he or she receives the request for change? Like you need to go through the permit process, or you're denied, you have to go through, or yes, you can make this change, or...
Yeah, that's not spelled out in here, so I mean,
I was just wondering, like, you know, if you know, Mr. Smith decides he wants to make a change, and he puts it into the floodplain administrator, and the floodplain administrator doesn't get back to him,
mm-hmm.
and it becomes a month, and you're holding up construction.
I'm way out there. So I just wrote a note that said, what happens, what's the timeline, can you elaborate on the process for this?
Okay. Alright, so yeah, I'll look into that. And
Because if he doesn't get a response, you know that person can come to the select board and complain, right?
yeah, I'm thinking that I'll have to think about that one more. But yeah, I think it would kind of be like a 250 in terms of, you know, an amendment versus a whole new permit.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like,
Good question.
okay, so the next one, VH, so that's the start of construction. What happens if the applicant doesn't start within 180 days? It isn't curable, so not sure how section X applies, which is the enforcement section. So this definition here is pretty much FEMA. FEMA requires the 180 days. So I'm not. Can you clarify?
Yeah, like what happens if it becomes 181? What happens to that permit? Is it now void?
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. Can we make that clear? Because the only thing under sort of enforcement is like you get fined if you don't sort of do
Okay.
the right thing.
Okay.
Well, I read it, as a common man would read it, it says the work on the proposed construction and development shall begin within 180 days,
period.
period.
Yeah.
On that 181st day, you
181,
can't do nothing.
Yeah.
So if I go out there on the 179th day and dig a hole and put a footing in the ground, I've started construction.
Exactly, because what the actual starter's construction means
So I
is
get,
defined
which means I've got 24 months.
to finish it once you
Once you
start.
start.
Correct. So then it means I
No,
got,
after date of issuance of the permit.
No, you have 180 days
To
after
start?
the date to start, and
Yeah.
then you have.
And 24 months after the
Right.
date of issuance of the permit.
So
I
it's
thought
the
it was
same
after you
date.
started.
So you've
I'm
used
sorry.
180
Yeah.
so you've already used
You've
6
used-
months.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. It's the same. It goes from the same
Oh, yeah.
point.
We're both reading that wrong.
No, we did,
Yeah.
by golly.
So yeah, or the permit. I mean, it's kind of stated there, Gabby. Or the permit shall expire.
I thought it went if it wasn't finished within 24 months.
You're right. It's legal mind.
24 months. So you're saying that you think that,
Can we add
or
that
the permit shall expire after the
The first
180 days
sentence,
too?
just a
Okay.
bit? Because I mean, people reading this are gonna be like, "What?" Like that way they know. 180
Well, you
days,
know
that's
what?
it.
You wanna know what I'm gonna say?
No one's gonna
Is
read it?
Nobody's gonna read this because there's gonna be such a precedence. Anybody who's got any type of land in a floodplain, they're gonna be screwed if they ever wanna sell their land, because nobody's gonna wanna buy it.
Well, these things are already in place.
I understand that.
Well, no,
but
no,
I'm
no,
just-
but they're in place for these specific
For these
purple
specific
areas.
purple areas.
Yeah.
All these
Yeah.
green areas, which are
Is what
incorporated in
this-
that document, I think is what Troy's referring to.
Right.
That all of
Yeah.
a sudden,
So if I
We
wanna
now
buy
have a
this
lot
piece of
more
property right
impact.
here,
Yep.
alright, it's up for sale,
Yep.
but it's in this new floodplain hazard, and I can't do nothing with that piece of property because it's gonna cost me, and you guys are tightening the belt around my throat and everything like that, I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
guess-
how I incorporated this, but I'm just the common man.
no, I'm
You're
with
not
you, and
common
I'm
by
common
any
too.
means.
well, I'm just want. I mean, what about the bylaw makes you feel that way? Because I mean, there's development restrictions, but like the start of construction wouldn't.
No, not the start of construction, I'm just saying this whole thing.
In general.
In general.
The whole thing
the
in
whole-
general.
Right,
It's,
it's putting so much on the common man, or
Mm-hmm.
the common person,
Yeah.
let's put it that way, not man, because there's, anyways. But I just think that if you are looking at buying a piece of property in a flood zone, you're not gonna be able to do squat with it.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's.
this is the.
You are
li-
limited in what you can do.
Limited.
You're
Yeah.
not
Limited,
necessarily
which means, which is the
restricted
step
from.
That's
above zoning. Getting into zoning, this is
Right.
what this is getting into.
oh, it's exactly the same.
This is zoning.
It is zoning.
It's exactly.
It is,
It's zoning for these areas. Yeah.
Yeah, for the area that's in this floodplain, it's in zoning.
and so that we are in compliance with regulations.
I
you know,
understand that.
Which is different from zoning in general.
And it's
Well,
true.
but in compliance with regulation, I'm unclear what you mean by that.
No, this is a regulation saying we can get some more money if we adapt this.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
the
It,
5 or 7%.
among other things, it
Right.
makes us eligible for the maximum amount of federal and state grants. That is correct, to the town.
Yeah, that's
So it
correct.
reduces the financial burden on the town.
Mhm.
It
Correct.
limits the freedoms of a property owner buying or building property in the floodplain zone or in the,
I mean, I guess the question then would be, do you want to allow for the development to happen
Oh,
in the floodplain in the river corridor?
This is a pretty tight document, I'll agree with Troy on
I mean,
that, but I also
yeah.
think we have to protect
we do have to protect,
protect the river corridors and.
yeah, we do.
I mean, these are your vulnerable areas.
Yeah, it's just, there's so much restrictions on things.
It's actually not if you, you can do a variance. We can say, hey, we know you're in that river corridor,
Yeah.
but you've owned that land and you've always had your whatever sugar shack here, and so if you wanna put an addition on, we can grant a variance.
But you
I mean,
do
that
it, you do it
it's a-
for Troy, and then the
Yeah.
next variance, the person
You
who
could
comes
have
in.
a whole
But
new
they
board.
say, no,
Absolutely.
we're not gonna do a variance, we have a different makeup on the board.
Different select, exactly,
Different-
Right,
exactly.
And they say no.
Different floodplain
And-
administration.
oh yeah, throw that.
But the point is, so that variance can mean one thing here and can mean not getting a variance down the road, and that's where to me, it gets cloudy. To me, the big issue is these purple areas, which are considered floodplain now on our current map, they're well known. They've been tracked for years. That's where the flood damage, for the most part, occurred in Irene. I think. I'm personally not a huge fan of incorporating all the riverbeds and, including, because once you've done that, you're outside our current floodplain as it's known by everyone in the town of Guilford, and you've stepped out and now you're in, you're getting involved in so many other pieces of Guilford that the additional regulation is, I would struggle to have people go through this process that are outside that direct floodplain area, and maybe in the next 100-year flood it will be even worse than Irene, and there may be some impacted areas that are included in your riverbed areas, but I'm not sure they're as significant as we're making them out to be here.
Yeah, so the small streams buffer, which this map does show, the last map that I
Right.
brought did
You
not
did
show
that,
the
right.
small streams buffer, so Jeff put that in. And it is what did we want? He's like, make sure that you tell them this is, basically just, it's not set in stone. This is.
I understand.
This is,
Right.
Yeah, this
But-
is simply a buffered line. But we did do an analysis. I asked him to
Right.
say how many
Which I
structures are
appreciate.
in that, in the small streams buffer. There's 22 structures in the small streams buffer, just to give you an idea.
22 structures, but when you
Yeah.
look at land and you follow
Oh,
these
yeah, it's gonna
into
touch a lot of
parcels,
parcels,
it's
yeah.
all of a sudden touching a
Nearly
much
every
more
parcel, right?
amplified
Yeah.
grouping of parcels. And, I guess that's my concern from some of the people that I have had discussions with that live in the
Yeah.
town.
I've been looking at all these new streams out here, and I'm gonna say Jeff did one hell of a job, because a lot of those after March, you'd be hard to find.
Last year.
Once the snow
And-
melt,
and
once
the
the snow
thing
melt
is
is
that
gone, they're
if-
not there.
A&R can come out and help make these determinations for a specific project, and that's part of what they do.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, even though it's not set in stone what that 50-foot buffer is.
No, I
Where it's
understand.
top of bank, the FA might not be able to tell. So they,
I think
And it
there's
also
one
might be like, you can look at the topography. Like I just know here, because my parcel's around here, that's so steep it's not gonna be built.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean, so there's different things
That's a
look
very good
at.
point.
And I was just, how much, do you have any idea, and this is, I know nobody's asked you this before, I think, is how much area is this increasing protection
Acreage-wise.
over? Acreage-wise,
Yeah, I haven't-
over what's already protected?
yeah,
That's a good question.
that's Jeff might be able to do that analysis. I didn't ask for that.
I know you
information.
didn't.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I was
I'm not saying that it's not good, don't get me wrong,
No,
it's
it's
just,
a tight document.
It's right.
it's, it's.
Yeah, no,
very-
it's totally. I mean,
very
these
tight
these
document.
concerns are definitely things to weigh out in terms of deciding if this is appropriate. If your residents are gonna.
Well, that's the process, right, just so I
Yeah.
understand it.
So
You
I
have to
think
put this
to-
out for vote,
to
right,
your-
at some point?
To
Okay.
your point,
Oh,
Gordon,
God,
one of the things we learned a year ago doing the hazard mitigation plan was that the occurrence of a major storm, tropical storm or a hurricane used to be once every 100 or 30 years or something like that, and now it's more like every 10 or 15.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the increase in climate related disasters, climate-related disasters are definitely on the increase. They are occurring more frequently
Right.
and over shorter periods of time. And that this is actually a way to be proactive in anticipating what the cost to the town might be as this keeps changing.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, that's a,
Yeah,
that's a very
it's-
good
I
point.
understand
Definitely.
that, yeah.
I mean, and it may not be a bad thing to discourage someone from developing right next to that stream. If they can build back from the stream, that, but, that would be something to think about on a project-specific basis, and,
Right.
Because this is really only it's a 50-foot buffer, right? So
It
you're
is.
talking about, 150 feet from whatever the bank is. It's not like super huge, so you're not putting, you're not putting constraints on a large amount necessarily of people's land, depending on where it
Question
is.
actually I have combines something that Gabby said and that Gordon said, is of the new streams that would be included in this, how many acres of those are technically going to be undevelopable land just simply because of the
What
nature of the
percentage?
topography?
That's a great question.
yeah.
Good point.
Which is what Gabby,
That's why it's combining what she said and what he said.
Right? No, it's a
So
good
that may not have much of an impact on the residents of this town at all.
Right.
If
If it's mostly undeveloped.
65% of that is undevelopable land.
Yeah, and the structures,
Right.
I mentioned there's 22 structures in the small streams buffer, there's 55 additional structures in the mapped river corridor, that's not the small streams, so 77 structures. But that's not an absolute figure. There's, that is, somebody standing out there with a GPS or
Sure, yeah.
at whatever, how many years ago, and not standing right near where the structure is or something, so.
What were they again? Just, you said it twice. 77 total.
77 total in the river corridor.
Right.
and
20 some odd were in,
34 are in
Okay.
the special flood hazard area.
34 were in the special flood hazard,
Mhm.
and the balance were in the newly noted.
So, could we take a reading here? We are a third of the way through this document, and it is 7:45. Do we want to keep going line by line? Do we want,
I'm not sure how many more times I'm going to be able to come back.
I know,
Just
I know,
because
I was
of
just
the
wondering
weather
if we
and
could
State.
I'm willing to keep going, I'm just wanted to find out from everybody else, and
Sure.
or to find out if there's another way to do this, which is to say, these are Gabby's questions, here they're answered, to take the document and to respond to comments in the document by email or something like that, which then people would have a chance to read and further discuss. And then, I mean, Steve is not here, we won't get to this until the beginning of January. We won't pick it up again until sometime in January, when you're not available anyway, if I remember correctly.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Is there
January 18th is she's due. So.
is there a panic timeline on this? I mean, we have the essentials, we have the floodplain.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
your
floodplain.
document. It's
Yeah.
whatever you want your timeline to be.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean,
You
I wanna
have a
make sure that we
bylaw.
take advantage of your expertise and time,
Mm.
but not
So,
be
yeah.
unconscious of how late it is and how far you
Yeah.
have to drive
Yeah.
and
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
Do you want to do
I would like to hear other people's preferences, I'm raising the question.
I would say. I mean, Gabby's stuff I have answered here. I can call out a few things that I think maybe the group would want to hear of. She asked about recreational vehicles, which is referenced in 8A7. So if we get into some of like the more technical, what actually is and isn't allowed, and just so that you know that the recreational vehicles is a FEMA requirement.
Okay, what does that even mean? Like when you're talking about permitting in the flood and special hazard
Yeah.
area,
So.
or special flood area, you're talking, all of a sudden you're talking about development and now a vehicle's involved.
Yeah. So on RVs, they basically you just don't want them sitting in the floodplain.
Oh, she don't want a travel trailer,
So it doesn't get picked up and moved downstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
like the
So,
one down the other
another-
side of the hill
Yep.
did.
Okay, I was like, how did I?
I was thinking ATV and stuff like that.
I
Okay,
got you.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah. So I get you get the reasoning behind that one. Let's see.
Well, technically, if it's sitting there already licensed and ready for highway use, the town can't tax it anyway, so.
Yeah. And the other thing is you could require that it's not there for more than 180 days if you want to as well. So they can't park it for more than that period of time. If you wanted to prevent people from just living down by the river, you know.
Okay, kids, let's go.
Okay, so let's see. Does anybody else have questions?
The only
Yeah.
other thing that I remember of substance was deciding between the 1 foot and the 2 foot elevation. And I thought if we're going to all this trouble, we might as well say 2. It just,
Oh, the 2-foot thing? Might as well.
That's only for the special flood hazard area, keep in mind.
right.
I mean, if you're putting up a.
But
a
if
foot
why do they put 1 foot out there as the standard?
to tease you.
No, because some, I mean, in some areas, it's not that significant.
What
You
do
go
mean
up-
as a standard?
Well, FEMA
They
allows
give
a
you 1 or
1
a 2.
foot,
Yeah.
or we can choose to go to a 2 foot, correct?
No, FEMA requires no feet.
Okay.
There's no elevation
Okay.
requirement. Yeah.
I'll read this the way I misinterpreted. I thought there was a recommendation
Yeah, the
of a 1
how
foot,
this
and we
is-
can
How this model
increase
is
it
constructed is
to a 2 foot.
no, it's for a 1 foot. And then there's an optional if you want to increase
We could increase it to
to
a
2
2
feet.
foot.
So that would be a higher standard than what this is based. It's based
I
on-
see what you're saying in terms of why not, we're going this far, but it's one more requirement. It's an extra foot that's gonna be sightly that you can see.
It's an extra foot of protection too.
And it's an extra foot of
I
protection.
gave you my answer the other day, that it's a very complex document, and if there's any way to simplify it with the necessary information in there, it would be, you can do that while he's kicking.
Okay, so I think we need to decide 1 or 2 feet.
So I'm against I'm against 2 feet.
So my,
It sounds like the rest of
I
you
was sort of
are.
thinking, if you're putting up 1 foot, why not put it up 2 just to be safe, right? If we're talking about floods,
An
why not
abundance
put
of
it up
caution.
to 2? In an abundance of caution, what if FEMA changes the rules?
I'm not building in the floodplain.
I'm not either.
So this would be, for new structures are substantial improvements that are made when this bylaw is in place.
And that are
Does
in
not
excess of
require-
500 feet. We don't have to, you don't have to
What-
redo anything.
And whether it's 1 foot or 2 foot, you have to have breakaway walls, correct?
The flood proof, yes,
Yes.
you have
I'm
to
calling
have,
them breakaway,
for
that's what
the,
they are, that's the
for
water can flow
enclosed
through.
spaces below the lowest
Right.
floor, you have
So,
to have,
You
not
know,
in
breakaway
addition,
walls,
this
but
is
you
in
have
the-
to have,
I'm sorry, my
Openings.
terminology is
And then
incorrect.
This is also in the special hazard area, right?
This is
is
only-
That's,
only
it's
for
only in the
hazard.
special, but my thought might be that the water's gonna, whether it's 1 foot or 2 foot, the water's gonna move through the bottom of the structure, that's why those are there, correct? To allow the
yes,
forces.
you have to allow equal
Right.
forces of water so that the walls don't collapse, that's the idea.
So why would you recommend
That's
1 or
why
over 2 feet?
1 foot in Florida, with the openings, the water flows through.
Exactly.
Right, but why would you recommend 1 or 2 feet? Why? What's the difference, and what would a recommendation be for the basis for picking one over the other?
Well, 2 feet, you're lowering your vulnerability, and you are lowering your flood insurance rates.
The homeowner.
But the homeowner has that determination, so if I was a smart homeowner in
You
the
could
floodplain.
elevate it be above it, yeah.
But
it's
I
not-
could even go, so I guess and that's the note I made in my paper here, was that let the landowner or the homeowner determine whether they want to be 1 or 2 or 3. Maybe they'll get a reduced insurance rate if they
Well,
go
if we
3.
make it a minimum of 1, they can go above.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
point. So,
But
for me, I like 1.
Will the
Right.
homeowner have the knowledge that has been imparted upon all of you to make that decision?
I
Yes,
think
with
so,
the
through their
floodplain administrator's
floodplain.
direction, because he's the one who's gonna be issuing the permits and everything.
No, it's not impacted, and it's existing.
Am I hearing 1 foot?
Yep.
Let's go.
That's
Okay.
just my.
1 foot, let's go. Keep going.
I'm fine with making a minimum and allowing
Yeah.
people to build above.
Yeah.
That's fine.
If I was to build in a floodplain and it's got a minimum of 1 foot, I'm gonna add it.
But not everyone thinks the way you think.
No, not everyone's
was
been down
my
to Cape
question.
Cod.
Are we gonna continue on, or are we going to?
I would
Alyssa
suggest getting as
thinks
far
she's
as
nearly
we
finished,
can.
right?
What?
Are you nearly finished with?
Sure,
I don't think we had any other really substantive issues here.
Once this document is cleaned up and has been passed around, after all these edits have been done, what is then the process? What are you looking
I
for
think we need
as the
To
chair of the
come, I
select
think
board?
Steve will bring this back to us in a draft final version
Okay,
that we all need to read again, going through with explanations, I would think, of changes. Like confirming that a change has been made or saying why it should be addressed differently. And I think I'm looking through to see if there were any other substantive things, and
We can
I
send
don't
you,
know,
Well-
Gabby.
Gabby had a few other things. She said for section X, C2, that references
Page, sorry.
23. That references land use permit files, and she said, as far as I know, the town has no such files. This is something that needs to be created and kept in the town office. Who's the responsibility of keeping these files up to date? my answer is you should definitely already have files. I mean, for any type of floodplain permit that's already come through the door, should have been permitted.
I'm not, I mean, is anyone aware of a land use permit file that we have here?
I mean, maybe you call
There
it
is,
something different.
yeah, you'd have to check with Penny, but I'm sure there is,
They might be in the the land records.
it might be the.
But I don't think we have like a file that somebody actually is sort of.
From now,
No, I think there might be one on,
you might wanna have the floodplain administrator start
That's what I was thinking.
keeping, you wanna keep good records of all of these permits that you're issuing
Floodplain
because.
administrators was very busy. Steve.
Okay, I wrote a note for that,
Yeah.
okay?
Because not only that, but if FEMA comes to town
Right.
and you don't have any
Right.
records,
They're
that's
toast.
doomed.
Yeah.
You're, you know.
we got lucky with that, I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, and XD, the next one there. She said, reference being fined by a court. What court? So this is the Environmental Division of the Superior Court. So it goes, the town, you would have a select board or whoever would then say, you know, it's in violation, you have to give 7 days warning for them to mediate the problem, remediate it, and if they don't, then it becomes the fine, and then it goes to the court.
So do we have to file something
Yep.
with the court? I mean, that's,
Um,
and I didn't
that's
pull those
all-
statutes, that's why I said I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
pull
all
the
in
statutes.
statute.
So we would actually have to like take action and spend time taking action for enforcement.
Somebody is going to have to bring it to the court. However, the
Mhm.
procedure is for doing that.
It's fine if it's set forth, I just wanted to have an understanding of like what we had to do, like, so
Yeah.
this was in order to enforce the fines, we then have to go through a court process and
Yeah.
that's something else for the
Fined by the
floodplain
court.
administrator to do.
Yeah, fined by the court. It might be. I mean, you might. Yeah.
I was just trying to get a sense of what the town was gonna have to do, or floodplain, or
I
somebody.
mean, technically, this isn't new. You know, this is kind of laid out now in
Mhm.
writing, but these statutes already exist. Have for.
So all these, so when you say this is new, like all these statutes exist, I mean, is this true for these special things?
Yeah, it's true for the special. I mean, that's true for any civil ordinance. So your current
Oh,
floodplain
you're talking about
bylaw.
going to a court for a fine?
Yeah.
Or, oh, okay.
Yeah. This is civil bylaw.
And that's what I thought, I just wanted to make sure that we knew what we had certain responsibilities.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't just like we
that's
can charge a
totally,
fine.
yeah. Yeah. So, do we have? She asked that too. Do we have an annual report that we currently need to do for FEMA? Yes.
We do that? Does somebody do that?
And that's not something new from these regulations.
Okay.
Again, this is this is a lot of the reason for this additional information in the length of this bylaw is because and the detailed administration, the detailed laying out of the duties, is because these things aren't happening in a lot of towns. This type of permitting and this type of development is a lot more important than, I mean, all of the damage happened in Irene because of all of the development in the floodplains, right, and the river corridors. So, trying to just limit your vulnerability and limit your vulnerable development being put in the future to lessen the hazard going forward. And so over time, the idea is that it gets less and less vulnerable because you're only building in areas where it's suitable for development. But,
And I think it's important because like when you talk about
Oh,
FEMA
it is.
buyouts and things like that, rather
Yeah.
than have something that somebody's built and lived in for 20 years, now a flood comes through and they're talking about a buyout, they're losing they're losing their home.
and they only
I
get
agree with you.
$37,000 for a buyout, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's not in anybody's interest to, want to be in a vulnerable
Yeah.
position.
And plus, aren't the insurance companies sort of like increasing slowly or
Oh,
annually?
God,
Yeah,
they're
the
tightening,
flood
they're tightening up
insurance
on
rates are
anything
going up,
and
sure.
everything.
It's gonna
So
be just like the oceanfront properties back, 30 years ago,
Mhm.
Mhm.
up here.
Mhm.
If you're in the floodplain,
Yeah.
you won't be able to afford insurance.
Yeah.
So,
And-
and that's a bad position to be in, to have a home where, the regulations change. So when I talk about being proactive, I mean, I think if it's new construction, we can start thinking longer down the line about how things have happened in the past with floodplains and how things
But I'm
change
thinking,
things.
well, I understand what you're saying and I agree with you and stuff like that, but here it is again, you're gonna start building.
Yep.
And let's say somebody, for some reason, the property comes up for sale down by the fairgrounds,
Mhm.
where the brook runs through
Mm-hmm.
there, alright?
Yep, that's true.
Somebody buys that and they're wanting to build,
They're gonna be constrained.
they're gonna be so constrained, and Steve, as of right now, Steve is a very busy person.
He didn't know what he was volunteering for.
Steve should know what he's volunteering. He has read through
I'm
this.
sure he
Yeah.
does,
Okay.
I'm sure he does.
I mean, we have to keep going though on this
Yeah,
discussion
okay.
if we have more substantive issues to resolve tonight. It's 8:00.
Yeah.
Or should we-
So, I mean, what I can do is, draft this up. Did anyone have any other comments to make about changes other than the ones I've received?
Don't let Gabby make any more, ask any more questions.
Yeah, we're gonna take your computer.
I got the email
I-
from Sheila making sure we read it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is good.
So all of mine are more edits and small questions that you have, so.
Yeah, I mean, anything that I do, I just have to make sure it's compliant. And you can't just change anything, so
Well,
there-
you guys did a great
Right,
job on
right.
this, I just wanna reiterate, you did a great
Yeah.
job, but I'm sorry, it took me 5 days to read this.
It took me
Yeah.
3 sittings. I mean, like
Yeah.
I said, it's
How long
complex,
did it
it's
take
no
you to do
joke.
page 2?
Yeah.
You guys,
A
I mean,
long
you
time.
set forth, and it's really well thought out, and really
Yeah.
sets
Send
forth
it
everything in detail. I think it's great. I know you spent a lot of time on it, so thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. And one thing I want to
Fourteen
say
years,
to you guys before is this is not official or anything, but I have heard word that that eventually down the line, A&R may mandate river corridor regulations for every town in the state. So you don't do it now, you may have to do it down the road anyway by force,
Mhm.
or by requirement.
And we're getting such wonderful help now doing it.
So that's just something to think about. I don't know that for certain, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Greatly
It was an
appreciate the
amazing
time and
job. Do we
energy
get to
you put
keep this
into it.
particular map?
Sure,
now?
yeah,
Thank
keep
you
it,
very
right,
much.
keep
This
it.
Why
will
don't you
help
just
us.
put it right up
I
there?
think we will.
We will,
We
not
will.
right now. Not
Because we're
right now.
gonna
We're
need
gonna
it
move
later.
on with our meeting.
We're
Could-
gonna uncover the mic.
And could you clarify, to Gabby's point on the acreage, one, that the rivers, if he could, figure out what the impact of the 50-foot on either side
Acreage?
in total,
we
and
don't
or,
want to do that only because it's so dependent on the width of the stream, and that 50 foot could be 100 feet in areas
well, we don't have any
because of
streams
the
this-
buffer.
Can you just give us like a
We could
rough
use,
estimate with that caveat?
yeah,
Like, what's the area on that map? Knowing that we have that
Yeah,
caveat.
okay.
because
So
our
you have to go from
streams,
jump.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're,
yeah.
they're just not, we could do it.
Yeah.
I think we'd be a lot smaller than we believe.
No,
And that's what I was
I think
hoping
that's
you
what's
would see.
important to be able to understand.
Yeah, I think I
because-
was hoping you would see that from the map with the buffers, is that it really isn't a large amount of area. But you're right, it
It's-
does touch a lot of parcels.
It's not, yeah, the area to me isn't personally, I mean, it's not as important as what it touches,
Mhm.
from the people that I've spoken to about their particular pieces.
Okay, so folks are aware of this now.
Well, they're starting to become aware of
Okay.
it.
Good job.
I feel it's important to speak to her.
No, it's good. So
People
yeah, I
about-
mean, what I would say is if I'll draft this up, get it to you, and
Why
then
don't you send it to Peter and then he can send it on? That way we'll know that
Thank you, Peter.
okay.
he's got that.
And then however you want to do it, what you're not required to do very much. You're basically just required to vote on it at a warned meeting. But if you
We don't
want
have to have a public hearing
you don't have to have a public hearing, but we discussed it last time, you
I
probably
wouldn't do this
should.
Yeah,
without you.
yeah.
You probably should, even though, you know,
Personal.
it's the minimum requirement of
I
public
wouldn't go near this.
because you've already, it's through chapter 59. Chapter 117 would require it, but it didn't go through the planning commission. So, because it's through the select board, you don't have as much to do, but you might wanna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, and who knows, John Bennett may be able to assist with that. He's gonna be my stand-in for this stuff in my, while I'm on maternity leave.
Great.
You're in good hands.
Get John to do it.
Yeah, John, blame it all on John.
Well, thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Really
you all
appreciate
very
it,
much.
Alyssa, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for
Same.
reading it and reviewing it, and I'm glad you have
Not
such.
trying to beat you up.
Safe
No.
drive home.
No.
I
I don't
missed the
think that way.
transportation meeting
Thank
tonight,
you.
didn't
What?
I missed the transportation committee meeting tonight. That was huge.
Working on budget.
Oh, there was nothing at WRC last night. I was the
So,
last one out. See you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
moving on.
Well, there goes that.
Ian, how's your battery?
That was just a backup, battery's fine. Thank you
That
for
wasn't my
asking.
fault, was it?
Nope, my
Um,
fault.
the next item on the agenda is to review and adopt, I think, the Rescue Inc. contract
That
for
was the intention, yeah.
2018. Peter will, for fiscal year 2018.
Yeah, so we actually received this back in, actually on my first day of work, in the middle of November. We have not brought it to your attention because, as with all these other similar things, you guys generally want to know from those who are requesting the funding what the services were that were offered to the residents of Guilford during that most recent time period. And so we were waiting to get that report back from Rescue, and we received that this past week, towards the middle of the week. So giving us the information. So as of right now, the contract as it stands is they're requesting level funding from last year. And so it is population-based, and their population, they have stated, based off of the 2010 census, is 2,121 people with an assessment of $22.63 per resident, for a total of $47,998.23. You're all welcome to look at these documents if anyone wishes, but I would recommend, based off of previous discussion, to
I would make a motion to go with that contract.
thank you, Dick.
Having dealt with rescue for years.
I'll second.
Gabby, thank you.
Thank
Is
you,
there any
Gabby.
discussion?
I would just like to know, we don't have to do it now, out of the 4,989 requests for service that they fulfilled, how many were Guilford residents?
Yeah, then the town report.
At some point, sorry, Sheila.
150 of them,
150 of them.
which is what,
Wow.
So what's that?
so,
You'll have to
I'll do
break
that
the
as an next
calculator
step.
out for that one.
It's
so
a
that's
lot
part
of
of the,
money per
that's part of the
per
information that was
per
received.
response.
Yep,
$4,000. Over 4,000.
So that's 3% of rescues hits we account for, our residents,
So
out
47,
of,
47,000.
correct,
And it was 105?
150.
150.
100.
Oh, you wanna know,
How much it
I wanna
costs
know
us
per-
per resident?
Yeah,
oh, that's even,
well, that's,
How much per call or how much per
48.
resident? Because they have it, I thought it was per resident is what they charge us.
they charge us $22.63
Yeah.
per resident,
Yeah.
but
So-
based off of how many times they showed up.
Yeah, how many times they showed up.
I will add the caveat that they do not list, probably because of privacy reasons,
Oh, yeah.
how many people they attended to at each call.
Yeah.
That's just 150 calls that they attended to.
That they,
Of which 26 were motor vehicles, 6 were falls, 7 were mental health, 4 were cardiac arrests, and then there were others.
is it,
well, if I take 48,000 divided by 150 is what you're asking, right, Troy?
$320 a call?
320.
Yeah.
Sorry. which is actually below their cost,
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's below their.
which we learned
But what
tonight
I'm-
from Lisa.
For which then on top of that,
3%
they soak your insurance. too.
of the, that to me is also an important number, that I think we're a small percentage of the total. I don't know how many towns there, I'll have to do some math, but anyway, I was just curious.
They do state
Yeah,
how
it's
many.
like Windham Solid Waste. It's like,
But,
That would be
unfortunately,
heavy.
unlike the Windham Solid Waste, we don't have as many other options that we can look into.
Right.
right.
No, but it's my understanding, and I'm not an attorney, and we ought to perhaps talk to an attorney, but I thought the federal government, if a call goes into rescue, they're gonna respond, whether we're a charter member of a town that is affiliated with them or not. And then they are able to use the insurance of the individual and, follow that chain. I mean, that's. So anyway, not to get off on a tangent.
We
but-
had talked at one point, a long time ago, about exploring to see if there are alternatives to Rescue Inc. Honestly, I don't think it's that high on our list of priorities for the coming year to do.
And they
But
do a
it's
great
not-
job
yeah.
as an organization in terms of the way they help our,
Don't hit him on the shoulder.
sorry.
So if anybody wants to talk to
so-
Gordon about this for the paper, that would be.
No.
Yeah.
Gordon doesn't talk to anyone about anything.
So,
Madam Chair does.
Yeah, Madam Chair. So there's a motion on the table to sign the contract and, do I hear it?
It was
Yeah,
seconded.
it was moved in,
Yeah, it
seconded.
was
Okay, that's what I
seconded.
thought. Okay, so is everybody in favor? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
No one abstains.
Okay, so do I sign
I
this?
Yes.
think it's just you.
It's all you.
The next thing, which I am going to recommend that we table after a brief remark, is that
Yes.
Peter resurrected the draft social media and email policy, which is actually quite relevant to our activities right now. The one that you worked on a long time ago, right?
I worked with Becky, and then I think
Becky, and
Becky
then-
gave you my notes so that
Yep.
you could work on it.
So-
is what so I
Yep.
hope you have Becky's
We've got,
notes.
yeah,
from
we have all the
everything.
notes, and it was in the box. I would ask that people read it. If you would like to put it in not as a PDF, then people could
Yep,
make
I'll put it in as a
comments.
document.
And we will table that for a meeting in
Can
January.
I ask, can you also send around, Peter, a red line of the draft that you sent versus VLCT's draft?
Sure.
Did I hit you to it?
This is gonna
It
be-
just had to do its thing.
The next item on the agenda is a question regarding inclusion or
is.
exclusion of town report, of vital statistics in the town report.
Yeah, so this will be relatively quick. So Sheila and I met with Neil Quinn this past week regarding the town report and starting that process for this upcoming town meeting day. And in that meeting, Neil informed us that for a variety of reasons, the largest of which is primarily because of online predators of various forms, whether it's people doing identity theft or other forms of predators, that some towns within the state have recently begun removing the vital statistics from their town report. I looked into this with VLCT, and the inclusion or exclusion of vital statistics is within the town report is solely at the select board's discretion. It is not something that is mandated to be in there. So I personally, I would, based off of Neil's experience with this and in other towns that he's heard are doing this, that you guys, at least in part, exclude some of the vital statistics moving forward, but that's your discretion. You could also completely remove all of them. However, I don't know how residents will feel about that.
That's the best part of the town report, the vital statistics.
What
But you can
included
have-
in the vital
I'll
statistics?
get it.
'Cause I
Name.
didn't pull it in my,
It tells you who died.
Who died,
Who
so that's public
for.
record, right?
It is technically public record, but
Public record.
Yeah.
the thing is public record, at least within our state at the moment, is not published online. This document is published online on our website that somebody could easily download and have that information with very little work.
Deaths.
It has births, deaths,
It's the
and
dates, you
and
could
deaths.
list the
And the
names,
dates.
but not put the
Yeah.
dates.
That's what I was
yes.
wondering.
So, which is my suggestion at doing a partial
Okay,
exclusion.
so births, it lists the date, the name, and the parents. Marriages, date, marriage, location. Death, date, name, and age. So we could just list the names of the births, deaths, and marriages.
And just
without-
exclude
Put
the
the dates
dates.
in, no names?
Or put the
No,
dates and
don't
have, you
put
could
the
play the
date-
guessing
don't
game.
put the dates.
Or just put the month or something.
So, I mean, to me, that's the who's who in Guilford for the course of the year. Who died, who got married, and who had children.
Right, so Neil's recommendation was simply to remove the dates, to leave the names in there because that's important to many people.
Yes,
I like that.
yes.
So
And
you
that's-
guys will have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to remove dates and leave names in
I would make
vital
that motion.
statistics?
Second.
Dick, Gordon, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Windham County Humane Society contract is a longer, we just got some information as this meeting was starting, so we actually can't really talk about it tonight.
Next
Oh,
time.
okay.
Tabled.
The highway budget, we
The
waiting for
highway
another.
budget, we're still waiting for a
Waiting
couple
for
more
another,
numbers, so
yeah.
we can't, but I will say that, we are moving ahead on the budget in terms of expenses, and we have, two things have happened, we have asked, we have agreed to provide data as it's approved to the auditors, so they can get moving on the booklet.
Awesome.
And the other thing, that both the library and I believe, not officially yet, but the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department will now present their financials to us as budget, actual, and proposed budget, rather than, which is consistent with how the general budget is done, the highway budget is done, the school budget is done. Up heretofore, those two entities have done it as a P&L, and now the town will be able to see all the budgets in like fashion, which I think is a
Thank you.
great idea.
Can I ask one thing about the highway budget before we go on?
Mhm.
You wasn't here.
Well,
Go ahead.
now, when I'm looking at the spreadsheet, actual budget FY17, FY18, and then it says a change FY17.
Ignore that column.
Ignore that
Okay,
column, that was supposed to be.
can we do a
removed.
delta? Can
We
do a
will,
Yes.
we will,
Yes.
but
Okay.
but so, we don't have, like, for it says 35% of the year, that's actually end of October figures.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I just
So-
want a delta between the two budgets.
Yeah,
But we haven't done any
What's up,
additions or
what's
anything
down?
like that.
we have not done that yet, but we can in
We will.
It would
Before
be
I
helpful
before I
to
want to
see that.
approve it, I mean, I'd
Yeah.
like to be able to take a look and see how things have changed. so-
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
You'll
if
be
you
pleased to
look,
see that there are a lot of items that have gone down.
That's what I heard. I heard a rumor on the street.
Yeah, that rumor is flying.
so, moving on. Troy asked a question regarding the authorization of the select board to take action on the Broadbrook Community Center perk testing. Peter will
So
report.
I, as Troy requested at that meeting, I followed up with VLCT in their legal department. I do have a response here from them. It's lengthy, so considering a
Break it
time.
down.
So the decision that you guys made last week is fully within your realm because
We're not
No,
selling.
you're not selling, there's no conveyance of
Right.
any form for that decision.
We're good, Troy.
So the decision you made is good.
Thank you.
She does provide, the attorney did provide us with other information, should it be found that they do need to put a septic
Some
on
help.
the town property, but that's a completely different situation.
Okay.
But you were within your rights to make the decision you did.
I just wanted
Thank you.
Nope,
Come on, you
it-
sleep
peace of
tonight.
mind.
they actually
You
thought it
can
was a
sleep.
great question, so.
Hear that?
So, moving right along,
Come on,
We-
let me have my thunder here.
I'm gonna give you a little more, Troy. So, we have, the Windham Solid Waste Management Board of Supervisors voted on their budget last year. So I have a couple things to say about that. One is that for the record, Guilford did not threaten to leave Waste Management District. We agreed in our last meeting to explore options and to see if there were any other benefits that we could do anything else in a more cost-effective manner for the town. Number one. Number two, the budget that was passed is to close MRF and to provide no trucking. So there will be a one-time closing cost assessment spread among the district towns of $94,000. The budget for Guilford is going to be $25,920.60 for fiscal year 2018. That is $1,500 less than this year, and certainly nowhere near the cost savings that we had hoped to realize. But now we have work to do.
I thought the whole thing was closing up there.
No,
Not the whole thing,
No,
just the MRF.
Just the MRF.
Yeah,
Just the sorting of the recyclables.
so we have services to figure out how to provide to this town
Uh,
by
Go ahead. You go ahead.
by
and then I'll
July
finish.
1st, I think.
You gotta get your thunder in yet.
Oh,
I'm gonna get my thunder.
you are
in.
good.
We still belong to that district.
Uh-huh,
If they, and I called Cheryl tonight
okay,
to make sure before I open my mouth, as long as they are accepting trash, the townspeople they will still, more than likely, have a box there. It will
Box.
not at Windham Solid Waste Management District. It won't be, she said there's things to be worked out,
yeah,
but it won't be done there. It'll be a box where people can take their recycling,
mhm,
put it in and stuff like that. But she said that she would have more information to us.
great.
But
Good.
if they accept rubbish there, they have to accept the recycling
Yeah,
by law.
okay. So,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you, Troy.
for checking on that.
Moving right along.
Moving right along, the next item on the agenda, thank you. I'm getting cross-eyed here. So we negotiated a 12-month contract with the Vermont State Police, July 1st through June 30th, 16 through 17. They changed that contract and we brought it to the attention of the select board to a 6-month contract. It expires December 30th. I asked for the contract renewal, it was
31st.
at 31st, 30 days of September?
31st, yeah.
31st, thank you all. I'm glad somebody's still awake. And so I have here, I'm requesting authorization to sign the contract, same dollar amount, same terms, going forward through June 30th of 2017. Windham County Sheriff's Department has asked to make a new proposal to us. Vermont State Police has been asked if they wish to make a proposal to us for the next fiscal year. So we do not yet have anything to vote on in terms of fiscal year 2018.
And yeah, I need to do some research comparing the two
Yes.
offerings before you guys have a decision to make.
So is there a motion for me to sign the contract for continued Vermont State Police services?
I'll make a motion that you sign that contract as stated.
Is there a second? Second. Gabby, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can you refresh us on why they decided to make it every 6 months?
I do not, it was something that came from headquarters.
I
They actually,
remember something.
Remember.
they actually could not explain it very well. Just, that's what we've been told to do is 6-month contracts. All right. Draft article from the select board. Did you make copies?
I have copies for
Okay, so we are
everyone.
due to submit an article to the Gazette on Friday, and this is the draft. Anybody? This basically talks about Peder coming on, other personnel transitions, a reminder that we have emergency management director, constable, and dog officer vacancies, and then a bit of information encouraging people to please come to our annual town meeting. So, I don't,
Did we ever get, and this one's too late to do it, but did we ever get the plowing snow in the road bit and the other Gazette that came out in the fall?
Oh,
No, I don't think we
I don't think we did.
But
Dick.
I drove up Guilford Center
Yep.
Road and someone was
Plowing into the road.
plowed a ton of snow.
We can
into
put
the road
that
and
right on
caused
the
it-
website.
Because somebody stopped right in front of me because they saw it and, you know,
Went down there on the corner with it.
I don't know where it was, in the curvy part.
Oops.
So, I mean, I don't think we need to approve this, because usually we don't. I just wanted to know if other people had something. If you
No,
have
I
any-
like this.
I think we probably need, I mean, if it's coming on behalf of the select board, don't we need a vote?
We haven't usually,
I
we
know,
just
but is that
drafted
right? I
something and
mean-
sent it.
Can't we, one person can't speak on behalf of everyone, right? So,
Well, it's kind of like an information letter. We're not making announcements or any, you know, we're not conveying decisions or anything. But you can definitely vote. We can vote to accept this draft, or you can amend it if you'd like.
I mean, I'm comfortable.
Okay.
And you're gonna wait to find out from Danny on this, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
On the staff, yes.
Yeah.
the X's have to be filled in,
That is correct. So it is not final.
Right.
Okay.
and you wanted to clarify.
All right. As long as there's no objections or other topics that people want to include, fine. Thank you.
So-
Moving on.
Oh, you got it.
So yes, there's, one brief discussion is, the contemplation of canceling the 12/28 select board meeting. Two members have already indicated they will not be present. And we were uncertain as to the other members as to whether or not you will be here after the holidays.
You're not here.
I am not here.
I am
Troy's not here. I'm here. Dick.
28?
28th of
28th.
December.
Yeah.
day of the week is that?
It is a
Wednesday night.
Wednesday,
I have a commitment Wednesday night.
so that means that we will not have a quorum then, so we cannot have a select board meeting that night.
We'll have to.
So, change the day.
How about the 27th?
I'm not available, but
I will say that we have a lot of budget work to do.
What about the
You had just under,
26th?
yeah, I mean, the budget is.
26th
It's a
is,
federal
It's a-
holiday.
it's a
holiday.
holiday
Peter
because
doesn't work.
the holiday falls on a Sunday, so we celebrate it on Monday. And according to our rules, is if the
Yep.
holiday's
Yeah,
on
okay.
Monday, we have it on a Wednesday.
So
We don't have to follow those rules.
we
Oh,
could,
No.
we have time to warn the meeting for the 27th if we'll have a quorum on the 27th.
Are you available Tuesday?
I think I could do the 27th.
I can do the 29th.
So what about Thursday, the 29th?
Works.
Yeah,
I could do the 29th.
yeah.
29.
Okay.
What's
Let's
the-
do the
We'll warn it for the
29th.
29th.
Okay, so I will
Thank you
warn
for-
for the
Now, do you
29th.
feel better?
Do we need to vote on that or just a decision?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do
Just
not,
not this warm.
And that's at 6:30?
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
think that
the
we
budget
have,
meeting will precede that.
is it?
Oh, on the,
It's not warned. I don't think we have a warned meeting, the last one in December.
I'm checking right now.
But we could.
No,
Warn it for
the next,
29th,
nope,
okay.
it is not. The next budget meeting is in January,
Okay.
We're gonna have a lot of stuff
so
to
6:30.
cover. So I may actually send around budget information before the meeting anyway, because we will have most of the data in.
Hard copy.
Yes, sir.
Troy, 29th, right? That's what we.
29th.
29th. At 6:30, correct?
At 6:30.
Yes.
I
Moving
will,
right
I will warn
along.
it and I will let you all know.
Thank
And he has, we now have the calendar that he's updating for us. Moving right along, highway update, 2 words, plowing and potholes.
Plowing potholes.
Oh, Brattleboro catches on to that.
No excess permits. Okay, finance.
Well, speaking
Troy,
of that,
are
I
you
just wanna throw one thing out there for the excess weight permits. Today when I was leaving, there was 4 tractor trailers, and I'm talking tractor trailers, going up Bonneville Road. Empty semis with flatbeds. I don't know if they was log trucks,
I was wondering if they were going to log truck, but they should have permits.
there's,
But we haven't given any permits
Yeah, in months.
for months.
But isn't it that we really have no enforcement of the permits? Isn't that the bigger, Morse?
There, Just not go there tonight, it's too long and involved.
But I just wanted to put it out there.
Will you hand the warrants to Troy, because he's gonna do this?
I would like to make the following motion that we pay payroll week ending 12/4/16 for $6,927.30.
The right people.
Payroll week ending 12/11/16 for $6,845.06. Expense warrant 17/11 for $19,366.56. And expense warrant DP11 for $91.50 for a grand total of payroll and warrants of $33,230.42.
Second.
Debbie, thank you. Any discussion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you. Okay, so we do need to sign. I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss an ordinance.
So can we like make it an executive session that's actually statutorily permitted? I don't think ordinance is one that's allowed, just to cover our bases, dot our i's and cross our t's.
Well, we have a motion, we have a.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question.
We
There's only like,
have a,
Wait, let's just go through the ones, let's just,
no, but we actually, I
we
think,
have
other
a
than that
personnel matter
situation,
to
there's a
discuss.
personnel matter that needs to be discussed in executive session. So we can go
So we
into,
can't-
So I move that we go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter at 8:30, or not quite.
8:28.
8:28.
Kick off in 2 minutes.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Thank you.
I just.
Us back into session at 8:57. Would you like to summarize our discussion?
sure, we had a discussion about a personnel issue, there was no decisions made, and we also had a discussion about a potential legal issue pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A1.
Thank you.
So moved.
Hang on, our next meeting is going to be Thursday, the 29th.
Correct.
Not at 6:30 PM. We will not have a budget workshop meeting on Thursday, the 29th. And I would entertain Dick's motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I would, thank you, Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.